Wow. Iron Banner was something this week, that is for sure. To be totally candid and honest, I did not have a great time during my first few sessions playing Iron Banner this past week. The game mode really seemed to be bringing out some of the least fun parts of the current meta. Pretty much, we can sum that up by saying Bubble Titan with barricades and shoot a Wither Horde at them. It was really difficult for me to get a rhythm going, and really tough, I felt like, to make an impact on the team if I weren't playing as a Bubble Titan. It reminded me a lot of when Rift came out 2 seasons ago, and I really struggled at first. I even didn't play for a couple nights, which is unusual because me personally, I love Iron Banner. It's usually my favorite event of the season, to be quite honest. So I was struggling a lot with it this past week. Like what happened when Rift came out, I took a couple of days, I thought about it, I did some other activities, I kind of thought about why I wasn't enjoying it. I watched a couple videos from content creators like Cami Cakes. That was a great video. I'll link it in the description. And again, I did a little bit of thinking and build tinkering, and I realized that with the matchmaking, there was the lag. The lag was just awful, and it was every game. I was reporting anywhere from 1 to 4 players every game, and I played I think over 100 Iron Banner games this past week, which isn't a ton, but I would say it's probably more than average. The lag was awful, and I really struggled with that. The game mode itself is actually pretty fun. Like, I'm a fan of zone control, as an objective-based game mode, but with the way Bubble Titans are really just dominating the meta, it really just became whichever team had more Bubble Titans. And we would literally look at the roster when we flew in and we'd say, hey, we have more bubbles, or the enemy team has more bubbles. And I'd say probably 85% of the time matches were won by the team with more bubbles, which is just my estimate, and it's not a great metric to use, I don't think, for a competitive game mode. It was possible to beat teams with more bubbles, but it didn't happen often. So here's the build that got me through the Iron Banner this past week. I ultimately had a lot of fun with this. Once I embraced the fact that every single game was going to be completely laggy and just awful in that regard, and embrace the fact that we're not going to have as high of a win rate while we're figuring out this game mode, and getting other people figuring out this game mode too on the team, and building a team around it. So I really tried to approach it sort of like doing a raid or master PvE content, or trying to go into trials or competitive. Tried to think, hey, what's a good build composition? And you really need the whole team to be having that conversation and all working on it in a game mode like this. So we ended up settling on 2 to 4 Bubble Titans, depending on who was in the lobby. And we would also have 1 to 2 Wells with Stag. And we had typically a Stasis Hunter. And then maybe a Nova Bomb or a Stasis Warlock would be really good too. This is the build that I settled on. I kind of workshopped this build throughout the week, and this is sort of where I landed. So Vigilance Wing I started off using even before I switched to Bubble. Vigilance Wing was really strong in this game mode for me personally. I felt like when I was using Vigilance Wing that I was getting the boosts from its intrinsic perk, when teammates would die nearby. These games are just a slaughter fest. People were constantly dying, respawning, running at the zone, dying, respawning. It was crazy. I also found, I used shotguns, I used pellet shotguns, I used slug shotguns, and I finally settled on fusion rifle later in the week. I felt like there were a lot of ranges where even a slug shotty wasn't quite far enough for. And for some reason, just a fusion rifle, I was able to just go on some kind of crazy streaks this week with a fusion rifle. It felt good, especially with the way the maps were playing out. Peregrine Greaves is what I ultimately landed on as well. The reason I did this is at first I was using One-Eyed Mask for the overshield, obviously, which helped, but I felt useless against the random Bubble Titan that pops, or the Warlock that pops, or even just a roaming super that pops. I always felt so useless. I wasn't running suppressor grenades ever. I was trying to run vortexes pretty much the whole time. So I always felt useless against a super, and this was sort of the response to that. Once I put this on, I started having a lot better results. I pretty much had every range covered here, and I would have overshields constantly. I would have bubble. I was usually the first 1 to 2 people, probably usually the first person in the lobby with a bubble, sometimes the second or the third. And really the strat was just chain bubbles, as you're going to be seeing through some of this gameplay. The idea is just pop a bubble, get those orbs, start chaining. when you come out of that middle capture zone, we would go right to the new flag, the middle flag, we'd cap that, and we would just steamroll from there. That was the idea. But yeah, that is that's pretty much the way it was. It was not a great week overall. The game mode I think is really fun. The meta is a little tough to introduce a capture the flag game mode right now, unfortunately. So I think it's probably a good thing we didn't get Countdown back. But I had more fun as the week went on. So yeah, I really think that's the ultimate story here. Is I appreciate the creativity. I love the new game mode. I love the fact we had a new shader, new armor. The armor's bomb. The armor's awesome. New shader, new emblem, all of that stuff, really cool. I wish we had that stuff for competitive, but it's really great that they brought it for Banner. So that's it. Enjoy the rest of the gameplay, and hopefully you throw a like or a subscribe or anything like that. I'm going to be trying to put together some more build videos. I'm going to start doing more videos like this, I think, and yeah, we'll be getting back on the competitive grind and the trials grind coming up. So